Hi everyone, welcome to today's research-informed defensive lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, use of force expert, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, CEO of Active Self-Protection, Stephanie Widener.
BakerTargets.com is where I get the targets you see me shoot all the time on Active Self-Protection Extra. They ship fast, their prices are great, and they have all kinds of targets, both for competitive shooting, defensive shooting, and fun too. Check them out. Cuiabá, Brazil, and you see this guy who's getting his little one out of the car. There's two women in the car as well. He's got a toddler in his arms. Sees a dog coming out of the kind of light spot across the street. Neighbors, I think, trying to get his car backed in there. Is going to see a dog come out of there in a minute. He's checking his phone right now, but watch him here as he's going to look, because a dog is going to come out of that yard, and you're just barely going to be able to see it on the very top. And he sees that dog, and now he's going to go, oh man, that's a problem, as that dog kind of starts bebopping a little bit down the street towards him. He's going to shift the baby over into the other hand and draw his gun. When the dog starts making a beeline for him, he's got no time left, and as the dog gets close to him, we can see it from the other angle, he's going to see that dog coming. The woman jumps in the car here. He then backs up as best he can, braces himself, puts a couple shots in that dog, and they proved to be fatal to the dog. Now, what you're going to see here, go read the news stories I've linked in the description, and the owner of the dog, who's going to come running across the street here frustrated, originally told the cops that his dog had run and stopped in front of the guy's car, and the guy just shot the dog while the dog was stopped there. And so they originally charged him with animal cruelty. But the video came out, and that changed things significantly, and those charges were dropped. I can't imagine that they get along very well as neighbors at this point because of those kinds of things. But thankfully, nobody else was harmed here. Of course, the dog didn't make it. Boy, do we get some lessons from this one. We finally got a restock in the web shop for the ASP t-shirts. It has the ASP logo on it that says good, sane, sober, moral, and prudent repeated on it. These are super cool in lots of different colors. Head to the web store and pick one up, would you? Helps us kind of run the business here and bring you these lessons every day. Steph, I am going to start this one by saying this is actually eerily similar in a lot of ways to the case that I just finished here out of Arizona. And if you want to go watch my testimony in that case, it's in the ASP Unlimited app. So if you are watching this in the ASP Unlimited app, go watch the Arizona versus Elliott testimony that I gave. If you're not in the ASP Unlimited app, we have exclusive stuff like that in there all the time. There's all kinds of great content in there, and I just recommend that you join us there. It's a great way to get away from YouTube. But recognize here that when you shoot a dog, there's going to be some consequences to that. And that could be all the way up to felony trials. And it does happen. Now, I do want to say here from a practical perspective, getting the baby out of the car, all hands on deck. I do love the fact that dad is paying attention and not sucked all his attention inside the car.
Yeah, I think that's great. It looks to me like they have talked this through. They have a bit of a plan. This is how we get out. This is how we get into the house. And they're all very aware of what's going on. And you don't really even see anybody freeze up at any of this. Everyone seems to know exactly what to do and when to do it. And that tells me they have communicated about it quite a bit. And I think that's great.
Yes. And I also love, again, I think in some places and in some cultures, taking care of children is women's work, but I actually really love that dad here is just as engaged. Give me the baby. I can have the baby as well. Now, I will say from a practical perspective, all my children's are grown now, right? My youngest is 19, but when they were little like this, as a rule, I tried to carry the baby on my support side so that I could always have my gun hand available to me. And now that might be a little over the top. That might be a little far because he had time here. He's carrying the baby on his strong side, had the time here to shift the baby over to his support side. But that's because he was really paying attention, and that attention bought him the time to do that. So just to have that already taken care of, I did keep the baby on my support side and a little bit of work of drawing with one hand only while holding onto the baby. Because of course, we always say drop what's in your hands and put two hands on the gun, but Steph, that does not include a baby.
No, especially not with a charging dog that you were hoping to hit. That's a small moving target. So dropping the baby here was absolutely not an option. And we have seen defenders with children in their hands successfully defend themselves by drawing a gun with one hand, putting effective shots on target several times on the channel. And this man is no exception. He does a great job.
He does a great job. So kudos to him all the way around. I think here, this is clearly, I'm tipping my hand, a justified use of defensive deadly force. Now, he is kind of sucked into his phone a little bit here. I don't know what he's looking at. Maybe he's texting somebody who's inside the house and saying, hey, let us in the house, or, let us in, blah, 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 blah. I don't know exactly what he's doing, but he doesn't get sucked into his mobile device. He is still paying attention. And when that dog kind of comes out and you can just barely see under the street light there, see the dog kind of coming out, he is paying attention down the street to see what the heck is going on down there. Not, I don't think, in a paranoid way, but simply in a paying attention kind of way. And as we say all the time, attention buys you time. Time buys you options. So because he was paying attention, he got to see this, so he had the time to make a good decision. And I think so many times, Stephanie, people get sucked into their mobile device, their attention, the thought vacuum gets them in their attention, and then they lose that time, and that's when negative outcomes happen.
Well, those phones are designed to do exactly that, to suck in our attention. They spend a lot of time and money figuring out the best ways to get us completely absorbed into that. So you really have to fight that. And I think this is a great example of what we talk about, just being curious about what's going on in your world, present, engaged, what's happening, what's that noise. That really allowed him to stay way ahead of the curve on this and really allowed him to win the day.
It certainly did. And I love that idea, Stephanie, of just being curious. Just be curious of your world. I always tell folks, you don't got to be paranoid. What you want to be is you want to be like a 5-year-old that's just always looking around to see what is going on in the world. And that's that Colonel Cooper yellow color code, right? Not orange, not red, yellow. Just seeing what's going on in the world and being ready for it. I also love that he was armed, all right? So was he expecting to get in a gunfight this day? Absolutely not. Was he armed because he wanted to get in a gunfight? Absolutely not. But he's armed in case, God forbid, a deadly threat presents itself, and it did. So this is why I carry my firearm everywhere, because you don't get to pick when you need it. It's the aggressor that gets to pick when you need it, and he needs it right here. Now, if you notice that dog come across the street, we timed it off camera from when the dog actually turns towards him, not kind of bebopping down the road parallel to him, but towards him, and runs at him. It's just less than 3 seconds from then until the dog is actively and actually on him when the shot breaks. And here, right here, Stephanie, is a half second before that. So we know under complicated stimulus, Lewinsky et al. Did the research on this, and under a complicated, not a clear or simple stimulus, but a complicated stimulus, the stimulus received to the action happening is 0.56 plus or minus 0.08 seconds. So about a half second here. This is a half second before the shot breaks. So this is where he said, I have to shoot this dog. Look at how far that dog is away from him. That dog is a full car length and then some away from him. So somewhere 12, 15, 18 feet. I think it's also worth noticing that his wife saw a threat there too and jumped back in the car.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a history, if they know this dog, because as soon as she saw it across the street, she got back in the car and he was shifting baby. So there's the possibility that this dog is known for running free, that this dog is known for being aggressive. That's not unusual in these cases to have heard that the dog has caused issues before and was well known in the neighborhood. No idea if that's the case this time. Either way, again, they had a plan for this, whether it's something that they talked about or they're just good decision makers in the moment. But I love that woman took herself out of the scenario, got herself out of the, kind of backstop there. And since she couldn't help, she removed herself from the situation. I think that was good.
I really think that was a good decision. Now, of course, we're going to talk about the neighbor coming by here and being frustrated. I get it, man. It's your dog, right? You don't want to see your dog get shot. But I also want to note what happens here, because some people are going to look at this one and they're going to say, oh, but Fluffy is only kind of coming up here and he just wants to play. He just wants to get booped on the snoot. Well, maybe you can say that and maybe you can take that kind of risk. But notice that the woman decided to jump back in the car, so she certainly perceived a risk. And what an ordinary, typical, regular person seeing this dog running at you, if you don't know that dog, would you perceive that potentially as a risk of death or great bodily injury? Not just to you, but you're holding a toddler. And if you're wrong here and that dog doesn't just want to have a little bit of snuggle time, but he wants to make you into a chew toy, and you're wrong, you are risking your child's life. And so I get it. I'm a dog lover, right? I've owned dogs. We don't currently own dogs, but I go to your house, Steph, and your dogs love me, for God's sake. And Jeffifer is like my very best friend on earth. And so I love dogs too, but this is an unknown dog. And so could a reasonable person fear death or great bodily injury from a charging dog like this? I think the answer is absolutely.
Well, and the baby in the arms just gives you absolutely no margin for error. If you are knocked down, if the dog is able to jump up and grab and bite with teeth and claws, the little baby skin is so fragile. You're putting this baby at great risk if you do anything other than what this guy did. And I think the challenge that a lot of people have that don't read dog language very well is the aggressive and fighting very often just looks like excitement and happy, because the dog is excited and happy. So it can look like a tail up and wagging and all of the things that look like a friendly dog coming to greet you. And if you want to take some challenges here, maybe, John, we should talk about this. Was there an opportunity to pepper spray this dog here? If you're alone, maybe with that baby in your arms, I think it really adds too much risk to try to do anything other than what this guy did.
I completely agree. Now, I will say this, I've said this on the channel many times. I have used OC spray effectively on dogs multiple times, okay? I run in my neighborhood a couple times a week, and for some reason, dogs look at me like a squeaky toy, it seems. So, but if I'm just by myself, I might take that risk. I have 19 years of martial arts study. If the dog actually makes it to me, I feel pretty good that I can fend it off enough to then get to my gun if I need to. But if I had a toddler with me, heck, if I had my wife standing next to me, you can't take that risk then. Then it's a totally different calculus. And even, again, if I was elderly, if I didn't have the kind of empty-handed skills that I have, and you wouldn't expect a normal person to have those. I've chosen to get those, but we wouldn't expect that. Given all those, I don't know that an OC spray is something that certainly we would require, because that is a risk of death or great bodily injury. You might choose to take that risk. He didn't here. And I get it. As the shot breaks here, it looks like that dog is kind of crouching down a little bit, like maybe it was going to just menace or just going to bark or just going to come up to see what was going on. But remember, he made the decision a half second ago, and he had to make the decision a half second ago because the risk was so great. And so I want us to be very careful to understand here, Stephanie. This is literally the crux of my testimony in the Elliott case, was that we can't expect, if he had an Iron Man suit, we could have just told Jarvis to put his suit on and then the dog couldn't hurt him. But he didn't have that. He couldn't sprout wings and fly. So asking human beings to do things that humans performance-wise can't do is not a solution of success.
No, and dogs are incredibly intuitive and reactive to other people. For all we know, the dog is reacting this way because this man made that decision and assumed a very aggressive posture and aggressive nature. And so the dog was at that moment decided to back off. We don't know if this response is because the man was willing to step in and defend himself. We just don't know. And we'll never know. And we can't ask this man to risk his child over it. And I think these are heartbreaking. I think they're awful. And I think the challenge is that, you have to keep track of your dogs. You have to keep them, we have a psychiatric service animal that we have used. She's retired now, but one of the banes of my existence was having dogs off leash without any control from the owner, putting our dog at risk. That puts service animals out of commission with great regularity. So please, if you're a dog owner, please keep control of your dog, because in the end, that's what would have saved this dog.
I also want to look here at the surrounding area. And, somebody might say, well, why didn't he back up? Why didn't he look for cover? Where? He doesn't have any of that available. He's out there in no man's land. If he tries to get around the car, the dog's going to beat him to that and can run so much faster than him. Is he going to run off down the street? The door was closed, so he doesn't have anywhere to go. So he is literally in a spot where retreat is completely impossible without incredible risk. He's certainly not going to outrun a charging dog. Now, this was an American Staffordshire Terrier as well, what most people would commonly call a pit bull, okay? I've owned a Staffy, and they are generally wonderful dogs and super kind. But you know what? If my dumb pit bull had gotten out on the road and somebody had shot it, then the answer would have been, man, that stupid dog should not have been running here and running around the neighborhood. Because I say, first and foremost, the fault here lies with the dog. The dog ran up on somebody, and that person took them as a threat, which they very well could have, and so they earned that. The other part of this is, of course, who else do I hold accountable for this? Is the owner. The owner of the dog should have kept their dog secured. If they had not let their dog be unsecured, then we wouldn't be here in this spot. Now, as the owner, I understand you show up and you go, oh man, you shot my dog, gosh darn it. I hate that. And I hate it because I'm a dog lover, and we never want to take life flippantly. We certainly don't want to do that without an air of gravitas. But I mean this. If somebody had shot Moses, my bulldog, when he had gotten out in the neighborhood, and he liked to get out in the neighborhood, that dog was like a freaking escape artist. If he had gotten shot in that time, I'd have been like, man, I totally understand. Let's get a body bag and get this carcass, off the street, and then call the city and let them know the dog died. And that would have been totally okay with me because of that. Now, although, Steph, we have heard of plenty of cases, and in the Elliott case, the owner of the animal came out spitting hot and mad. And so having an OC spray may not be for the dog, but it may be because you got to put that gun away and you may need it for the angry owner.
Yeah, I mean, people get really emotional around dog. Anytime we have a situation, a video here that has a dog, the comments are off the charts. I mean, go look at them right now. I guarantee you there's a bunch of people that are frustrated about this video because it's very emotional. I get emotional about it. I don't like it. That said, so you have to be prepared for that aftermath, that the owner of the dog and or bystanders that may or may not have seen the whole thing, but just turned around to what looked like you shooting a crouching dog. You need to be prepared to defend yourself from that, because I've heard of that happening over and over. We've had that happen with one of our employees' family. Defended themselves from a justified encounter and had way more problem with the owners afterward than with the dog. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, be prepared for it. In this case, I'm so grateful that this daddy was ready. I'm grateful he was paying attention. I'm grateful he was armed. He needed to be armed in this particular case. The use of deadly force, in my experience, in my training, background, education, I believe was 100% justified. Thank God he was ready to cover his asp.